Okay, you're scrolling through the news and see this wild story. A 15-year-old girl's body found in the trunk of a Tesla owned by a famous singer. It's been weeks, maybe months, and the body's in bad shape with barely anything left to work with. The cops are stumped, waiting on lab results to figure out how she died. How do forensic experts even start to crack a case like this? Let's dive into the gritty science behind it and see what's really going on. On September 8, 2025, the discovery of 15-year-old Celeste Rivas' body sent shockwaves through the community. Her remains were found in a severely decomposed state, fragmented, and wrapped tightly in a plastic bag, weighing just 71 pounds. The condition of the body suggested that she had been left in the vehicle for an extended period, with estimates pointing to her time of death between late July and early August 2025. The vehicle where Celeste's body was found was a Tesla, parked in the hot climate of Hollywood Hills. The sweltering temperatures during those weeks played a crucial role in the rapid decomposition of her remains, making the situation even more unsettling. This discovery raised more questions than answers. How had she ended up in the car? What had transpired in those months between her disappearance and the chilling discovery? The heat in Hollywood Hills had only exacerbated the breakdown of her body, causing it to deteriorate at an alarming rate. The conditions were far from forgiving, and the longer her body had been in the vehicle, the more difficult it became to piece together the exact circumstances surrounding her death. There were still so many unknowns. What led to her being left in such a manner? Who was responsible for this? As investigators worked to unravel the case, the image of a young girl, full of potential, taken too soon, has haunted those who knew her. The community now grapples with a painful reality, one where a promising life ended too abruptly. But the mystery behind Celeste's death is only beginning to unfold. Every detail, every piece of evidence, and every question needs to be answered to bring justice to Celeste and her grieving family. This case isn't just about finding the truth. It's about making sure that Celeste's story isn't forgotten, ensuring her life matters even as we search for the one who caused her death. As we look for answers, we can only hope that the investigation leads to the person responsible for this heart-wrenching tragedy. The discovery of Celeste Rivas' body was harrowing, and one detail stood out amidst the tragedy: the tattoo on her right finger that reddish. This simple but significant tattoo became a crucial clue in confirming her identity. Despite the severe decomposition and the fact that her body had been fragmented, the tattoo was visible enough to provide some sense of closure for those trying to identify her. However, the condition of her remains was devastating. The decomposition was advanced, and the body had been in such a state of decay that much of the soft tissue had been damaged. The intense heat from being left in the Tesla had accelerated this process, causing the biological samples to degrade rapidly. This made the task of collecting usable DNA or other forensic evidence extremely challenging. Many of the samples collected were of poor quality, making it difficult for investigators to draw definitive conclusions. The decomposition and fragmentation of her body also meant that traditional identification methods were limited. What remained of her was not the young girl remembered by those who knew her, but a collection of disjointed pieces that were hard to connect back to the vibrant teenager she once was. Yet, the "she" tattoo served as a small beacon of recognition, offering a glimmer of hope in the midst of such horror. The deterioration of her remains also meant that any hope of finding clear, irrefutable forensic evidence was slim. Soft tissue that might have provided critical clues, like signs of struggle or injury, had been damaged beyond recognition. Despite these challenges, investigators pressed on, determined to uncover what happened in those lost weeks between her disappearance and the grim discovery. The presence of the tattoo, combined with the remains, provided enough evidence to confirm her identity, but it also underscored the tragic reality of the situation. Celeste's life, once full of promise, was now reduced to a few fragmented pieces of evidence, and the pain of losing her was only intensified by the brutal nature of the discovery. Her family and community are left grappling with the heartache as they await the answers to questions that only the perpetrator holds. Though much of the biological evidence was compromised by the decomposition, investigators are still working tirelessly to piece together the full story of Celeste's last moments. The "shh" tattoo may have confirmed her identity, but the search for justice is far from over. The decomposition of Celeste Rivas' body created a complex situation for investigators as the breakdown of tissues led to the growth of bacteria. This bacterial growth, combined with the natural chemical processes of decomposition, can result in the production of substances like ethanol and GHB gamma-hydroxybutyrate, which are typically associated with intoxication. However, in this case, these substances were not necessarily a result of foul play, but rather a byproduct of the body's natural decay. The presence of ethanol and GB due to decomposition can create what's known as a false positive in toxicology tests. These substances are often detected in the body during the later stages of decomposition, even if the individual wasn't exposed to them prior to death. This can complicate toxicological investigations, as it might mislead investigators into thinking there was a level of intoxication or substance use involved in the death, when in reality, it was simply a result of the decomposition process. As a result, investigators must be extra cautious when interpreting toxicology reports in such cases. The natural chemical reactions occurring in the body post-mortem can mimic the presence of banned substances or alcohol, complicating the forensic work and potentially delaying the understanding of the actual cause of death. Therefore, while these substances might appear in the autopsy, they do not necessarily indicate foul play, but rather the impact of decomposition on biological systems. Postmortem redistribution, PMR, is a phenomenon that can significantly skew toxicology results, making it a critical consideration in forensic investigations. After death, the body's metabolism ceases, but certain substances, such as banned substances and chemicals, continue to move within the body. This process is known as postmortem redistribution, and it occurs when substances previously concentrated in one area of the body, such as the brain or liver, redistribute into the bloodstream. As the body decomposes, the chemicals can migrate from the tissues into the blood, leading to inaccurately high concentrations of these substances in the blood. This can be particularly problematic in toxicology tests, where the goal is to determine whether banned substances or alcohol played a role in the cause of death. PMR often results in higher blood levels of substances than what would have been present at the time of death, potentially leading to misleading conclusions. For example, if a person had been exposed to a banned substance before death, postmortem redistribution could cause banned substances to spread throughout the body, especially in the blood. This could create the false impression that the banned substance was at a toxic level in the bloodstream at the time of death, even though it may not have been at such levels prior to death. In some cases, PMR can lead to the false assumption that a person was intoxicated or under the influence of banned substances when, in reality, they may not have been. This phenomenon complicates the interpretation of toxicology reports, and forensic experts must carefully account for PMR when analyzing blood alcohol content or banned substances levels to avoid misjudging the cause of death. Understanding and identifying postmortem redistribution is key to ensuring accurate forensic conclusions. Forensic experts have confirmed that the soft tissues and internal organs of Celeste Rivas' body were no longer viable for toxicological analysis due to the prolonged exposure to high temperatures. The extreme heat, combined with the extended duration of time the body had been left in the Tesla, caused significant degradation of these vital tissues. As a result, the soft tissues and internal organs, which are typically crucial for identifying toxins or determining the cause of death, were rendered unreliable for postmortem toxicology studies. High temperatures accelerate the decomposition process, causing cellular breakdown and the release of enzymes that further degrade biological samples. In cases like this, where the body has been exposed to such conditions for weeks, the integrity of the organs, including the liver and kidneys, key sites for banned substances metabolism, becomes compromised. The degradation of these tissues means that forensic experts are unable to extract reliable samples for toxicological testing. Additionally, the prolonged exposure to heat can cause the natural process of postmortem redistribution to occur at an accelerated rate. Substances that may have been present in the body prior to death can move through tissues into the bloodstream, potentially creating misleading toxicology results. In such situations, experts must rely on other investigative methods, as the typical toxicological markers would not provide accurate information. The lack of viable samples significantly limits the forensic investigation, making it difficult to draw definitive conclusions about substances that may have contributed to the cause of death. In forensic toxicology, the quality and source of blood samples are crucial for accurate results. To avoid postmortem redistribution, PMR, and contamination, forensic experts typically prioritize peripheral blood, which can be drawn from areas such as the thigh or arm. This is because peripheral blood is less affected by PMR compared to blood from other parts of the body, like the heart, where substances may have redistributed due to decomposition. The use of peripheral blood reduces the likelihood of skewed results caused by the movement of banned substances or chemicals after death. However, in cases where peripheral blood is not available due to decomposition, the condition of the body, or other factors, other alternatives may be used. Forensic experts might then turn to heart blood, which, despite being subject to some redistribution, still provides valuable information. In more severe cases, such as when no blood is accessible through conventional means, a technique known as spleen squeeze may be used. This involves manually squeezing the spleen to extract blood, though it is a less reliable method due to potential contamination. In the case of Celeste Rivas, the condition of her body posed unique challenges. Given the advanced decomposition and exposure to high temperatures, there was a significant risk that her blood had either clotted or been contaminated by bacteria. Decomposition accelerates the breakdown of blood, which can lead to clotting or bacterial growth that affects the quality of the samples. These factors make it difficult for forensic experts to obtain reliable blood samples, which are essential for toxicology testing. As a result, investigators face limitations in understanding the exact cause of death, especially when it comes to identifying substances present in her system at the time of death. Vitreous humor, the clear gel-like substance found in the eye, can be a valuable sample in forensic investigations, especially when the body is in an advanced state of decomposition. Forensic experts often prioritize taking 2-3 ml of vitreous humor from eye because it remains more stable than blood, making it a useful alternative when other samples are compromised by decomposition. Unlike blood, which is prone to clotting and bacterial contamination, vitreous humor is less susceptible to postmortem changes, including the effects of temperature and time. Vitreous humor can be tested for a range of substances, including alcohol, potassium levels, and various banned substances, making it an important tool for toxicological analysis. The presence of alcohol or banned substances in vitreous humor can provide crucial insight into the cause of death, as these substances are typically retained in the eye longer than in the bloodstream. Potassium levels in the vitreous humor can also help estimate the time of death, as potassium concentration increases over time after death. This makes it a reliable sample for determining both the presence of toxins and the timing of death, particularly in cases where other biological samples are compromised due to decomposition. In cases like Celeste Rivas, where the body had been exposed to high heat and decomposition, vitreous humor can be a critical source of information. Despite its stability, however, it's important to note that vitreous humor is not without its limitations, and results must be interpreted carefully, alongside other available evidence. The liver is another important organ for forensic analysis, particularly when investigating the presence of substances that may have accumulated in the body. Forensic experts typically prioritize taking 50-100 grams of liver tissue for examination, as it is a key organ involved in the metabolism and storage of various compounds. The liver can retain substances longer than other organs like the stomach or brain, making it a more reliable sample when the body has undergone significant decomposition. Unlike the stomach, which quickly empties its contents after death, and the brain, which is highly susceptible to decomposition, the liver maintains its structure for a longer period. This makes it particularly valuable in cases where the body has been exposed to high heat or decomposition, as it may still contain traces of substances that were present before death. By analyzing liver tissue, forensic experts can identify the accumulation of substances that might have been metabolized and stored by the liver. In cases like Celeste Rivas, where decomposition had severely compromised other biological samples, the liver may provide important insights into the presence of toxic substances or chemicals in the body. However, as with all postmortem samples, it's crucial to consider the conditions of the body and the potential effects of decomposition on the quality of the tissue. The liver, despite its advantages, can still be subject to degradation, and its analysis must be done carefully in conjunction with other evidence to accurately determine the cause of death. Hair and nails can provide valuable forensic evidence in cases of prolonged exposure to substances, especially when other biological samples have been compromised by decomposition. Hair, in particular, offers a unique advantage as it can store traces of substances over extended periods. Forensic experts often examine hair samples, as 1 cm of hair growth is approximately equivalent to 1 month of exposure, making it possible to trace substance use over several months or even years. Hair is especially useful in cases of significant decomposition, as it is more resistant to degradation compared to softer tissues like blood or internal organs. Even in advanced stages of decay, hair can often provide a clearer picture of a person's history. For example, a 3C numbered section of hair could potentially reveal information about substance exposure over a 3-month period. In the case of Celeste Rivas, examining her hair could yield information about her past and whether she had been exposed to substances in the months leading up to her death. This could help forensic experts determine if substance use played any role in her death. Additionally, hair can also help establish a timeline, allowing investigators to gather crucial information from as far back as 2024, depending on the length of the sample. Nails, like hair, also retain substances over time and can be used to detect traces of chemicals or other materials that might not be present in other samples. Both hair and nails, therefore, provide important, stable evidence in the face of decomposition. Bone marrow is another valuable sample in forensic investigations, particularly when other soft tissues have degraded beyond usefulness. In cases where traditional samples like blood or internal organs are compromised due to decomposition, Bone marrow can provide crucial insights into the body's exposure to certain substances. Forensic experts often turn to bone marrow when other options are not viable, as it can retain traces of substances over time, particularly heavy metals or compounds that accumulate in the body. The advantage of bone marrow is that it tends to preserve its structure longer than soft tissues, making it useful for postmortem toxicology, especially in cases of extensive decomposition. Bone marrow can be tested for the presence of heavy metals, such as lead or mercury, or other substances that may have been ingested or absorbed by the body over a prolonged period. However, bone marrow is less sensitive when it comes to detecting acute exposure or high doses of substances that may have been present in the body immediately before death. This makes it less effective for determining recent or sudden poisoning. In cases like Celeste Rivas, where the body had been exposed to heat and decomposition, bone marrow may still offer valuable information about long-term exposure to certain substances, but it may not provide conclusive evidence of recent or acute ingestion. Despite its limitations, bone marrow remains an important tool for forensic experts when other biological samples are no longer viable, helping to piece together the full history of substance exposure in the body. The stomach and brain are two key organs that forensic experts often look at for toxicological analysis, but they present challenges in cases of advanced decomposition. Both organs are highly susceptible to rapid degradation after death, making them less reliable in situations where the body has undergone significant breakdown due to heat or prolonged exposure. As a result, organs are typically less available for analysis compared to others, like bone marrow or hair. However, the stomach can provide valuable information if it still contains material at the time of examination. If food or other substances are present in the stomach, it can offer insights into what the individual consumed before death. Even though the stomach may not retain its structure for long periods, the contents can help forensic experts identify substances that were not yet absorbed into the bloodstream. This can be particularly useful in cases where the person ingested something shortly before death, and the substance has not yet been metabolized or processed by the body. Similarly, while the brain is prone to rapid decomposition, it can still be analyzed in certain circumstances if it remains intact. The brain may contain traces of substances that could be relevant to the cause of death, but, like the stomach, its vulnerability to decomposition limits its use for toxicological analysis. In cases such as Celeste Rivas, where decomposition was advanced, the condition of these organs would have posed significant challenges, making it harder to rely on them for conclusive evidence. To ensure the preservation of biological samples for forensic analysis, it is crucial to store them under optimal conditions. When collecting samples such as blood or tissue, they must be placed in airtight containers to prevent contamination and degradation. One effective way to preserve these samples is by adding a preservative such as sodium fluoride, which helps inhibit the breakdown of substances within the sample and minimizes the risk of bacterial growth or other postmortem changes that could compromise the results of toxicological tests. Sodium fluoride is commonly used in forensic toxicology because it prevents the metabolism of glucose and inhibits the activity of enzymes that alter the chemical composition of the sample. By adding sodium fluoride, the sample remains stable for a longer period, which is especially important when conducting postmortem analysis on bodies that have been exposed to high temperatures or prolonged decomposition. This is particularly valuable in cases like Celeste Rivas, where decomposition may have already started to affect the quality of biological samples. Once the preservative is added, the sample should be stored at either 4°C refrigerated temperature or at 20°C freezer temperature, depending on the length of time the sample needs to be stored. A storage temperature of 4°C is suitable for short-term preservation, typically for several days to a week, while 20°C is better for longer-term storage, ensuring that the sample remains viable for weeks or months. Proper storage and preservation of biological samples are essential in forensic investigations, as it helps maintain the integrity of the evidence and allows forensic experts to conduct thorough and accurate toxicological analysis. The chain of custody is a critical component of forensic investigations, ensuring the integrity and reliability of the evidence collected, especially when biological samples are involved. It refers to the detailed documentation and tracking process that records every individual who handles or transports the evidence, from the scene of discovery to the laboratory where it will undergo analysis. This chain is essential in preventing contamination, tampering, or any alterations to the evidence that could compromise the results of the investigation. Forensic professionals must follow strict protocols when handling evidence to ensure that every step is documented. This includes logging the time and date of collection, the names of all individuals who come into contact with the evidence, and the specific conditions under which the evidence is stored and transported. By doing so, investigators create an unbroken chain that guarantees the authenticity of the evidence throughout the forensic process. The documentation must be thorough enough that any potential challenges to the evidence's credibility can be addressed, ensuring its admissibility in legal proceedings. In cases involving samples like blood, tissue, or other biological evidence, maintaining an unbroken chain of custody is crucial to prevent contamination. Even the smallest breach, such as improper storage or inadequating, can introduce contamination or compromise the integrity of the sample, leading to inaccurate or unreliable forensic analysis. This is particularly important in cases like Celeste Rivas, where the condition of the body is already compromised due to decomposition. Preserving the evidence without introducing any further contamination is paramount for an accurate conclusion. Once the evidence is collected and secured, it is sent to a certified laboratory for analysis. In cases like this, the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office, a recognized and accredited forensic lab, would conduct the tests. Their certification ensures that the lab follows strict forensic standards and maintains the highest level of professionalism in the handling and analysis of evidence, further assuring the accuracy and reliability of the findings. In the case of Celeste Rivas, biological samples were collected between September 16 and September 23, 2025. These samples were crucial for forensic analysis to determine the cause of death and any substances present in her system. The case has been assigned the case number FA 2025-43252, and it is currently under investigation by the appropriate authorities. The chain of custody for the evidence has been meticulously documented to ensure its integrity throughout the forensic process, with all samples sent to certified labs for analysis to provide accurate, reliable results. The forensic analysis of biological samples involves several stages, starting with initial screening and moving towards more specific tests. The process typically begins with initial screening to detect a broad range of substances that may be present in the body. This phase is critical for identifying the presence of common substances, such as opioids, fentanyl, cocaine, alcohol, and toxic chemicals like cyanide or pesticides. The goal is to narrow down the potential substances that could have contributed to the individual's death, guiding the next steps in the forensic investigation. One common method for initial screening is the enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay ELISA. ELISA is a highly sensitive and specific immunoassay technique that uses antibodies to detect the presence of particular substances. It's widely used for detecting banned substances, such as opioids and fentanyl, as well as alcohol levels and other toxins. The ELISA test is quick and efficient, making it a valuable tool for the initial identification of potentially harmful substances in blood, urine, or tissue samples. Alternatively, gas chromatography, GC, may be employed as part of the screening process. GC is an advanced technique used to separate and analyze compounds in a mixture. It is highly effective at detecting volatile substances, including many banned substances and alcohol. Gas chromatography can also be paired with mass spectrometry, GCMS, to provide more detailed analysis, which is useful for identifying specific chemicals or confirming the presence of suspected substances identified during the initial screening. During this stage, the laboratory will also test for toxins that may be present, such as cyanide or pesticides. Cyanide can be identified through specific chemical assays, while pesticides may be detected using chromatographic methods to identify harmful residues. If the initial screening reveals the presence of substances like opioids, fentanyl, or other toxic compounds, further, more specific testing will follow to quantify these substances and determine their role in the cause of death. After the initial screening, the results guide forensic experts in determining the exact substances involved and how they might have contributed to the fatal outcome. This multi-step process ensures that the analysis is comprehensive and accurate, helping investigators piece together the circumstances surrounding the death. By using these techniques, forensic labs can provide critical information that helps shape the investigation and bring clarity to the case. After the initial screening phase, the next step in confirming the presence and quantity of substances in biological samples involves liquid chromatography mass spectrometry (LC-MS). This highly sensitive and specific technique is used to quantitatively measure the concentration of various substances, including banned substances, toxins, and other compounds. LC-MS is particularly valuable in forensic toxicology because it combines the separate power of liquid chromatography, LC, with the identification and quantification capabilities of mass spectrometry (MS). The liquid chromatography separates the different components in the sample based on their chemical properties, and the mass spectrometer detects the exact mass to charge ratio of these components, providing precise information about their molecular structure. Once the compounds are identified, their concentration is quantified, allowing forensic experts to compare these levels to known thresholds of toxicity and lethality. The laboratory compares the measured concentrations of substances to establish toxic or lethal ranges. which helps in determining whether a particular substance contributed to the individual's death. For example, opioids, fentanyl, and cocaine have documented concentration thresholds that are considered harmful or fatal. Cyanide and pesticides also have toxic concentration ranges, and LC-MS allows forensic toxicologists to assess whether the levels found in the sample exceed these dangerous thresholds. By comparing the measured concentrations to these established levels, forensic experts can provide crucial information about the cause of death. For instance, if the concentration of a substance like fentanyl exceeds the lethal dose, it can be concluded that the substance played a role in causing death. This level of detail provided by LC-MS is essential for forming a conclusive opinion in forensic investigations. In forensic toxicology, the process of extracting samples from biological tissues is essential for accurately identifying substances that may have contributed to the cause of death. Two common extraction techniques used in toxicology labs are solid phase extraction (SPE) and liquid-liquid extraction (LLE). These methods are designed to isolate specific compounds from complex biological matrices, such as blood tissues or bodily fluids, so that they can be analyzed using advanced techniques like LC-MS. Solid phase extraction (SPE) is often used for its efficiency and precision in isolating analytes from samples. In this technique, the sample is passed through a solid phase material, typically a silica-based cartridge, which selectively retains certain compounds while allowing others to pass through. After the analytes are retained, they can be eluted, washed off using a solvent. SPE is particularly effective when dealing with complex biological matrices, as it can remove impurities and concentrate the target substances, making the analysis more sensitive and accurate. SPE is especially useful for extracting compounds such as opioids, cocaine, or alcohol from blood or tissue samples. Liquid-liquid extraction (ELE), on the other hand, involves partitioning the sample between two immiscible liquids, usually an organic solvent and water. The compounds of interest preferentially dissolve in one of the liquids, which can then be separated from the other. LE is particularly useful for extracting lipophilic C fat-soluble compounds and can be employed when SPE is less effective. This method allows forensic experts to isolate a wide range of substances from various biological fluids, especially when dealing with highly complex or viscous samples. Once the sample has been extracted, the resulting analyte is ready for qualitative and qualitative analysis, often through methods like LC-MS or gas chromatography mass spectrometry, GCMS. These techniques allow toxicologists to determine the specific identity and concentration of substances present in the sample. However, it's important to note that extraction is just one part of the forensic toxicology process. The results of the toxicological analysis must be interpreted in the context of the broader investigation, which includes scene findings and the autopsy. The history of the case and the findings from the scene can provide critical insights that help explain the toxicological results. For example, if a substance like fentanyl is found in high concentrations in the blood or tissue, and the scene indicates signs of overdose such as banned substance paraphernalia or evidence of misuse, this would strongly support the hypothesis that the substance played a direct role in the cause of death. Similarly, if cyanide is detected in the body, but there are no signs of trauma or overdose at the scene, forensic experts may look for other contextual clues, such as the presence of toxic chemicals or evidence of poisoning. The autopsy report would also help clarify whether the individual showed any signs of poisoning, such as specific internal injuries or organ damage consistent with toxic exposure. Ultimately, by combining the extraction techniques with a thorough understanding of the scene findings, autopsy results, and toxicological analysis, forensic experts can provide a comprehensive explanation of how substances contributed to the cause of death, offering clarity to law enforcement and legal authorities. This integrated approach is essential in piecing together the complex puzzle of any forensic investigation. During the decomposition process, the body undergoes various biochemical changes that can result in the production of substances like ethanol and GHB gamma hydroxybutyrate. These compounds, often associated with intoxication or overdose, can naturally form as the body breaks down after death. The process is influenced by bacteria, enzymes, and the breakdown of body tissues, leading to the fermentation of sugars in the body, which produces ethanol, and the conversion of certain metabolites, which can lead to the presence of GHB. In forensic toxicology, the presence of ethanol and GHB in postmortem samples can lead to false positive results, especially when testing for substances involved in the cause of death. Since ethanol is often associated with alcohol intoxication, its detection could incorrectly suggest that the deceased was intoxicated at the time of death. Similarly, the presence of GHB could be mistakenly interpreted as evidence of banned substance use, when in fact, it is a byproduct of decomposition. These false positives can significantly complicate the investigation. Forensic experts must be aware of the natural processes occurring in the body after death and account for the possibility of these substances forming due to decomposition. It is essential to differentiate between postmortem production and actual intoxication to ensure accurate toxicological findings. Additional testing and careful interpretation of the results, along with scene evidence and autopsy findings, are needed to provide a clearer understanding of the cause of death and to avoid misinterpretation caused by decomposition byproducts. Postmortem redistribution (PMR) refers to the process by which substances within the body, such as drugs or alcohol, redistribute from one area to another after death. This occurs as a result of the breakdown of tissues and the cessation of the body's metabolic processes. As a result, blood concentrations of certain substances can be significantly altered postmortem, leading to false conclusions if blood alone is used for toxicological analysis. In the case of PMR, substances that were originally concentrated in specific organs, such as the liver or brain, may move into the bloodstream after death. This can cause blood concentrations of drugs or alcohol to appear higher than they would have been at the time of death, misleading forensic experts into thinking the individual was intoxicated or had consumed harmful substances in a dangerous quantity. For example, a drug that was concentrated in the liver might show up in high levels in the blood, even though it wasn't present at such levels prior to death. To mitigate the effects of PMR, forensic experts often compare blood levels to other postmortem samples, such as vitreous humor, the gel in the eye, or liver tissue, which are less prone to redistribution. These samples provide more accurate reflections of the substances present in the body at the time of death. Vitreous humor, in particular, is more stable and less affected by decomposition, making it a useful tool for comparison. By comparing blood to these alternative samples, forensic toxicologists can achieve more accurate toxicological results, helping to clarify the cause of death. In cases of severe decomposition or body fragmentation, many biological samples, such as blood or stomach contents, may become unavailable or compromised, making it difficult to accurately assess the cause of death. The process of fragmentation, whether due to physical trauma or decomposition, can lead to the loss of valuable samples, which further complicates the forensic investigation. In such situations, certain alternative samples become more valuable and are prioritized for analysis. Vitreous humor, eye fluid, liver tissue, and hair are considered priority samples in cases of fragmentation or extensive decomposition. These tissues are less prone to decomposition and are more likely to retain viable chemical signatures compared to blood or stomach contents. For example, vitreous humor remains relatively stable postmortem, making it an excellent sample for toxicology testing, especially for detecting substances like alcohol or drugs. Similarly, liver tissue, being a key organ for substance metabolism and storage, can provide important clues about what was circulating in the body before death. The liver is more resilient to decomposition, allowing for more reliable results when other samples are unavailable. Hair is another valuable resource, as it can store traces of substances over long periods. Since hair grows slowly, it can be used to detect long-term exposure to substances, even months before death. It's especially useful in cases where blood or urine samples cannot be retrieved. In summary, when body fragmentation makes some samples inaccessible, vitreous humor, liver tissue, and hair should be prioritized for forensic analysis, providing the best chance for accurate toxicological results. In forensic investigations, especially when dealing with cases of severe decomposition or fragmented bodies, the quality of biological samples plays a crucial role in determining the cause of death. If the samples collected are significantly damaged or compromised, the toxicological results can be inconclusive, leading to an undetermined classification of the cause of death. This can make it particularly challenging to categorize the case as either homicide or accidental. When biological samples such as blood, stomach contents, or even tissues are damaged due to decomposition, improper handling, or postmortem redistribution, PMR, critical evidence may be lost or altered. This loss of data can prevent forensic experts from drawing definitive conclusions about the substances present in the body at the time of death, which in turn makes it difficult to determine whether foul play was involved or if the death occurred as a result of an accident. In such cases, where evidence is limited or degraded, the cause of death may be classified as undetermined. This leaves investigators in a difficult position, as they must rely on circumstantial evidence, scene findings, and autopsy reports to try to piece together the events leading to the death. The lack of clear toxicological evidence can make it difficult to differentiate between an intentional homicide, where a lethal dose of a substance may have been administered, or an accidental overdose, where the individual might have unintentionally ingested a harmful substance. Ultimately, when samples are compromised, the inability to conclusively classify the cause of death underscores the importance of careful sample handling, storage, and thorough forensic examination. The forensic report regarding the death of Celeste Rivas is currently pending, with the final determination expected by late 2025 or early 2026. This delayed conclusion is due to the complex nature of the case, including challenges related to the degradation of samples and decomposition. The forensic team is still working to gather and analyze all available evidence, including toxicology results and autopsy findings, to determine the cause of death. The report will ultimately help clarify whether the death is classified as homicide, accidental overdose, or undetermined. A determination of homicide would imply foul play or deliberate harm, whereas an accidental overdose would suggest unintentional substance ingestion. If the findings are inconclusive due to the degraded statins or inability to establish a clear cause, the death may be classified as undetermined. Given the severity of decomposition and challenges in obtaining reliable biological samples, the final classification depends heavily on the results of alternative testing methods, such as vitreous humor, liver tissue, and hair, as well as the investigation into scene evidence. Until all these factors are thoroughly examined, the case remains open, with forensic experts committed to providing clarity on what transpired. If substances like fentanyl or methamphetamine are detected in the toxicology report, one possible conclusion is overdose. Both of these substances are highly potent and can cause fatal reactions when consumed in excessive amounts. Fentanyl, in particular, is for its extreme potency, with just a small amount being capable of causing death. Methamphetamine, while not as lethal in small doses, can still result in fatal overdose, especially when mixed with other substances or taken in large quantities. If the cause of death is determined to be an overdose caused by either fentanyl, methamphetamine, or a combination of substances, this would point to accidental death. However, the circumstances surrounding the discovery of the body, such as how the body was handled or concealed, could complicate the situation and lead to additional charges, even if the death itself was accidental. For instance, if the body was hidden or disposed of improperly, it may suggest an attempt to cover up the death, potentially raising suspicions about the intentions of those involved. Hiding the body or failing to report the death could lead to a charge of tampering with a body or obstruction of justice. These actions, while not directly related to the cause of death, can still result in criminal charges. In many jurisdictions, this type of offense is a misdemeanor, carrying penalties that could include up to 1 year in prison or other forms of punishment, such as fines or probation. Even if the overdose was not intentional, attempting to conceal the death or mishandling the body could lead to serious legal consequences. Forensic experts will likely examine scene evidence to determine whether there are any signs that the overdose was accidental or if there are other indicators of foul play. For example, the presence of paraphernalia, the condition of the body, or witness statements could help clarify whether the death was an unfortunate accident or if there were intentional actions to hide or destroy evidence. If evidence shows that there was an effort to disguise the death or prevent it from being discovered, charges related to the concealment or disposal of the body would likely follow, even if the underlying cause of death was an overdose. Additionally, investigators will need to determine whether there were any signs of intentional harm leading up to the overdose. If the evidence points to the victim being intentionally administered fentanyl or methamphetamine, then a homicide investigation would be warranted. However, if no such evidence is found, and the overdose appears to be an accidental ingestion, the focus will remain on the charge of concealing the body. Ultimately, the final outcome will depend on the toxicology report, scene investigation, and autopsy findings, which will help authorities decide whether the overdose was purely accidental or whether other criminal activities, such as hiding the body or misleading investigators, took place. If toxicology results reveal no harmful substances or drugs in the body, the focus of the investigation would shift towards understanding the circumstances surrounding the body's fragmentation and any potential efforts to conceal the death. The absence of toxic substances would rule out an accidental overdose or poisoning, pushing investigators to explore other avenues that could explain the cause of death. The key areas of focus would then be the manner in which the body was disposed of, and whether there was any attempt to cover up the death, which could suggest foul play or criminal activity. Body fragmentation is often a result of violent actions or efforts to dispose of the body in a way that conceals the identity of the deceased or the cause of death. Forensic experts would carefully examine the remains to understand whether the fragmentation was accidental, for example, due to environmental factors like a car accident or natural decay, or deliberate. Deliberate fragmentation, whether through dismemberment or other means, would typically point to an attempt to hide the body and obstruct the investigation, potentially indicating homicidal intent. If evidence of intentional dismemberment or mutilation is found, the case would likely be classified as a homicide, and investigators would seek to identify the perpetrator. They would look for signs of struggle, defensive wounds, or any other physical evidence that could indicate the victim was alive during the dismemberment. In some cases, forensic pathologists might also determine whether the body was subjected to trauma or violence prior to being fragmented, helping to establish the cause of death. Efforts to conceal the body, such as hiding it in an area where it would not be easily discovered or attempting to alter the scene, would also be critical factors in the investigation. The way the body was disposed of, whether it was hidden or moved multiple times, can offer significant clues about the perpetrator's actions. A body found in an unusual location or hidden in a manner that suggests that a D4VD discovery might suggest that the perpetrator had a reason to hide the death, such as fear of being caught or trying to destroy evidence. Investigators would also consider witness statements, surveillance footage, or any other available scene evidence to determine whether the body's concealment was a deliberate attempt to avoid detection. They would also assess whether there were any signs that the individual was trying to flee or hide prior to their death. In cases where there is no obvious cause of death, behavioral analysis becomes a key aspect of the investigation. Law enforcement would investigate the relationship dynamics between the victim and potential suspects, looking for any signs of abuse, manipulation, or motive. For example, a domestic dispute, financial motive, or personal animosity could all point toward foul play. Behavioral profiling might also uncover any psychological patterns or histories of violence in the people around the victim, which could suggest they were capable of committing the act. If no toxic substances are found, and the death does not appear to be an accident, the focus of the investigation would shift entirely to the body's fragmentation and the efforts to conceal the death. These elements suggest that the death was intentional, and the person responsible may have attempted to cover their tracks. Through careful analysis of the remains, scene investigation, and behavioral profiling, forensic experts and law enforcement can begin to piece together the details of the crime, ultimately determining whether the death was a homicide, a result of foul play, or another form of criminal behavior. In the ongoing investigation of Celeste Rivas' death, Tesla vehicle data, including GPS logs and footage from Sentry mode cameras, is being meticulously examined to help determine who accessed the car's trunk in which Celeste's body was discovered. The Tesla model, equipped with advanced technology like GPS tracking and real-time surveillance through its Sentry mode, offers a crucial opportunity to piece together the timeline and uncover the identity of the individual who opened the trunk. These data points are essential in narrowing down suspects and understanding the movements leading up to the discovery of the body. The GPS data from the vehicle is particularly valuable because it can show where the car was located at specific times, allowing investigators to track the vehicle's movements before and after the incident. This could help clarify if the vehicle was stationary for an extended period in an area that may be linked to the crime scene, or if it had been driven around the area of Hollywood Hills or another location connected to the suspect. Furthermore, by reviewing the investigators may be able to identify if the vehicle's location aligns with known addresses or places related to potential suspects, helping to establish timelines and movements. Additionally, Sentry mode, Tesla's built-in security camera system, can provide real-time surveillance footage that may capture critical events. If the car was parked in a location with Sentry mode active, it would have recorded any movement around the vehicle, including people approaching or entering the vehicle. The footage could be instrumental identifying who accessed the trunk, or if anyone was seen interacting with the car in suspicious ways. This would be especially important for pinpointing whether Celeste's body was placed into the car during a specific time frame, or if the body had been transported there before the vehicle was found. The presence of a suspect near the car or interacting with it could provide a key piece of evidence in the case. In a surprising twist, the Tesla key fob was found in a storm drain near David's home in September 2025. The discovery of this key fob is significant because it suggests a direct connection to the Tesla vehicle involved in the case. However, the key fob's discovery raises some concerns regarding its chain of custody and possible contamination. Since the key was found by a member of the public before the police were notified, there's a risk that it may have been handled by several individuals, potentially compromising any forensic evidence it might have carried. If the key fob was tampered with or exposed to the public before being recovered by law enforcement, it could complicate efforts to trace its exact movements or establish a clear link to the vehicle. Investigators would need to determine whether any fingerprints or DNA could be retrieved from the key fob, which might help identify who used it or interacted with it in the days leading up to the discovery of the body. However, since the key fob was picked up by civilians before being reported to the police, its forensic value could be diminished if it was handled improperly. Despite this concern, the discovery of the key in the storm drain near David's residence remains a critical lead. If the key belonged to the Tesla and was connected to the crime scene, it could indicate that the individual who placed the body in the car had access to the vehicle. Investigators will need to examine whether David or anyone close to him had any involvement with the vehicle, or if the key fob points to a broader conspiracy or network of individuals tied to the crime. One of the important aspects of the investigation is that the Tesla was never reported as stolen, which effectively eliminates the hypothesis of theft from the equation. If the car had been stolen, there would likely have been a report filed with the police, or there would have been evidence showing it had been taken without authorization. However, since no theft report was made, it indicates that the car remained in the possession of its owner, or someone with access to it, likely a suspect in the case. This is crucial, as it focuses the investigation on individuals who had legitimate access to the vehicle, such as David or anyone else closely tied to him. The absence of a stolen vehicle report means that investigators no longer need to explore potential car theft theories, which often come with their own set of complications and distractions. Instead, the focus can remain on who had access to the car and why it was used to transport Celeste's body. This narrows down the suspect pool significantly, especially if the Tesla key fob turns out to be connected to David or a person of interest with access to the vehicle. With the key fob found near David's residence, investigators are now working to determine whether there is a connection between him and the car. If David's Tesla key fob is confirmed to have been used to open the vehicle, it would place him, or someone close to him, at the crime scene. The investigation would then focus on his possible motives, relationships with Celeste, and whether there is any evidence linking him directly to the disposal of her body. If David had a role in placing Celeste's body in the trunk of the Tesla, investigators would also look at his alibi during the time the vehicle was parked in the area. They would cross-reference his movements with GPS data from the car, as well as surveillance footage from the area surrounding the car, to verify his whereabouts and whether there is any discrepancy in his story. The goal is to establish a clear timeline of events and see if David's actions align with the evidence collected. Moreover, investigators would explore whether there is any history of conflict or motive between David and Celeste, which might explain why she was targeted. They would also consider whether other individuals close to David could be involved in the crime, particularly if there are signs that multiple people may have had access to the vehicle or the key fob. As of now, forensic experts and law enforcement are continuing to analyze all available evidence, including the Tesla vehicle data, key fob, and scene evidence. They are working with Tesla to retrieve all available data from the car, including any relevant driving logs, surveillance footage, and other sensor data that could shed light on the timeline leading up to the discovery of Celeste's body. Law enforcement is also considering David's involvement in the case, given the discovery of the key fob near his home, and investigators are working to piece together a more complete picture of the events leading up to Celeste's death. The next steps will likely involve analyzing the data from the Tesla cameras and GPS systems for more clues, as well as looking into David's personal and professional relationships to establish a clearer motive and connection to the crime. With these new developments and technological tools at their disposal, investigators are getting closer to understanding what happened to Celeste and who was involved in her tragic death. The continued analysis of Tesla data, key fob evidence, and witness statements will be crucial in solving this case. The toxicology report in the investigation of Celeste Rivas' death is crucial to determining the exact cause of death. However, the severe decomposition of her body has raised significant challenges for forensic experts, as it could lead to inconclusive results, complicating the ability to definitively classify the death. The investigation is still pending, with the final results expected by the end of early 2026. This delay has left investigators grappling with uncertainties as the nature of Celeste's death remains unresolved. The toxicology report is central to understanding whether substances like drugs, alcohol, or toxins played a role in her demise, and this in turn will have a direct impact on how the case is classified, whether it's considered an accidental overdose, homicide, or remains undetermined. Decomposition presents several challenges in toxicological analysis. As the body breaks down, many biological materials degrade, and the chemical originally present in the body undergo changes, which can skew or eliminate the clarity of any forensic findings. When soft tissues break down, blood, stomach contents, and internal organs are often too damaged to provide reliable samples for testing. This limits the ability to detect substances like opioids, methamphetamine, alcohol, or cyanide, which are commonly associated with poisoning or overdose deaths. Despite these challenges, forensic experts are working diligently to extract usable samples from more resilient biological materials, such as vitreous humor, the fluid in the eye, liver tissue, and hair. all of which are more stable than other tissues and less likely to have been compromised by decomposition. In cases of severe decomposition, the vitreous humor, the clear gel-like substance found in the eye, is often one of the best samples for toxicological analysis. The vitreous humor is less affected by decomposition processes compared to blood or organs, and it can retain chemical markers longer, making it an excellent alternative for detecting alcohol, drugs, and toxins. This sample has the added benefit of being less prone to postmortem redistribution, PMR, a process in which substances naturally move from one part of the body to another after death, potentially distorting toxicology results. Similarly, liver tissue is a crucial sample for forensic analysis, as the liver plays a significant role in the metabolism and storage of substances within the body. Even after decomposition, the liver may still contain traces of drugs, alcohol, or toxins. The tissue's more durable structure makes it less susceptible to degradation compared to other soft tissues, providing investigators with a higher likelihood of obtaining reliable results. Hair is another important sample, particularly when analyzing long-term exposure to substances. Hair grows slowly over time, and each centimeter of hair corresponds to roughly 1 month of growth. As substances are incorporated into the hair shaft from the bloodstream, they remain trapped in the hair, even as the body decomposes. Analyzing the hair can give forensic experts insight into substance use patterns prior to death, and it may provide valuable information on drugs, alcohol, or toxins that were present in Celeste's system in the weeks or months before her death. Together, vitreous humor, liver tissue, and hair represent the best hope for uncovering the presence of drugs, alcohol, or toxins in Celeste's body. The results from these samples could either confirm or rule out overdose, poisoning, or other substance-related causes of death. However, these results remain crucially dependent on the extent of decomposition and the quality of the samples collected. The toxicology report will ultimately determine whether Celeste's death was caused by an overdose, poisoning, or another factor. If substances like fentanyl, methamphetamine, or alcohol are found in toxic amounts, the case could be classified as an accidental overdose. An accidental overdose suggests that the victim unintentionally ingested a fatal amount of a substance, potentially pointing to substance misuse but without criminal intent. In such cases, the investigation might focus more on the person's history of substance use or possible misadventure, rather than deliberate harm. If toxicology results show a deadly dose of a substance or multiple substances, and there are other signs of intentional harm or foul play, the case may be reclassified as a homicide. Homicidal investigations would focus on determining whether someone deliberately administered the substance, either by poisoning or other means, with the intent to cause harm. Evidence of intentional harm or signs of struggle would be key in shifting the case from an accidental overdose to a potential murder. In the absence of definitive toxicological evidence, or if the substances found are not linked to the death in a meaningful way, the case could remain undetermined, further complicating the investigation. When a case is undetermined, it means that despite thorough examination, there is insufficient evidence to definitively conclude whether the death was accidental, caused by foul play, or due to other circumstances. This scenario can often lead to an open-ended investigation, where authorities continue to explore various theories and potential suspects. One significant aspect of the investigation that is already clear is the concealment of Celeste's body. Whether the death is classified as an accidental overdose, homicide, or undetermined, the fact that her body was hidden in the Tesla raises important questions about who was involved in the act of concealing the body. Hiding a body is a serious criminal act in itself, and regardless of the cause of death, those responsible for the concealment could face charges. If the death is classified as a homicide, those involved in concealing the body could face more serious charges, including first-degree murder or accessory to murder, depending on their involvement. If the death is ruled an accidental overdose, the charges for body concealment could still result in misdemeanor charges, which typically carry a sentence of up to 1 year in prison, depending on jurisdiction. Regardless of the cause of death, tampering with evidence, obstructing an investigation, or trying to hide a crime can carry significant legal consequences. As of now, the toxicology report is the key piece of evidence that will determine how the case is classified. The pending results of this report, expected at the end of 2025 or early 2026, will have a profound impact on the direction of the investigation. The deterioration of evidence due to decomposition remains a significant challenge, but the analysis of vitreous humor, liver tissue, and hair provides hope that toxicological clues can still be uncovered. Once the final results are in, investigators will be able to make more definitive conclusions about whether Celeste's death was accidental, intentional, or if the cause of death remains undetermined. Ultimately, the classification of the case will guide both the legal proceedings and the criminal charges brought against any individuals involved. particularly those who attempted to hide or tamper with the evidence of Celeste's tragic death. The investigation remains ongoing, and forensic experts continue to work towards uncovering the truth. The death of Celeste Rivas remains shrouded in mystery, with forensic investigation and toxicological analysis being crucial to uncovering the truth behind her tragic passing. However, the severe decomposition of her body, combined with the concealment of the body in the Tesla vehicle, has made the investigation more complex. The question remains: will medical and forensic analysis uncover the true cause of death, or will the curse of the trunk forever hide the truth? The role of Tesla data and biological samples is pivotal in recreating a timeline of events from September 2024, the last time Celeste lived, to September 2025, when her body was discovered. These two investigative tools, Tesla vehicle data and biological samples, could serve as keys in unraveling the mystery and pinpointing the exact sequence of events leading to her death. Tesla vehicles are equipped with sophisticated GPS systems and Sentry mode, providing a unique opportunity for investigators to track the car's movements and obtain critical surveillance footage. By analyzing this, investigators can reconstruct the vehicle's location at specific points between September 2024 and September 2025, shedding light on where the car was parked, how long it remained in certain areas, and whether there were any unusual movements or suspicious interactions around the vehicle. GPS data will reveal if the Tesla was stationary in particular locations, such as near areas associated with David or other key locations relevant to the investigation. Investigators could determine the car's movement patterns, identifying whether it was driven around during critical times in the year between Celeste's disappearance and the discovery of her body. Additionally, Sentry mode might offer important surveillance footage. If the Tesla was parked in a public area or had been left in a location with active Sentry mode, investigators could retrieve footage of people approaching the vehicle, especially if someone interacted with it, opened the trunk, or placed the body inside. This data could provide crucial visual evidence regarding who had access to the vehicle, and could even reveal the moment Celeste's body was placed in the trunk. The timestamps on this footage would align with GPS logs, creating a concrete timeline that could help establish the movements of the person responsible for concealing the body. While the Tesla data can provide a precise digital timeline, biological samples offer the potential to reveal the cause of death. Toxicology reports are critical in determining whether Celeste's death was caused by poisoning, overdose, or other toxic substances. However, given the severe decomposition, the quality of the biological samples has been compromised, leaving investigators with limited options. Nonetheless, vitreous humor, liver tissue, and hair remain the most reliable samples for detecting substances. Vitreous humor, the fluid found in the eye, is less affected by decomposition and could still contain alcohol, drugs, or toxins that were present in Celeste's body before death. It is also less prone to postmortem redistribution (PMR), a process where substances move around the body after death and could lead to false positives in blood samples. The liver, which plays a crucial role in metabolizing substances, is another key sample. Even after severe decomposition, the liver can retain traces of chemicals, allowing forensic experts to test for toxins, heavy metals, or substances that could have contributed to Celeste's death. This tissue may also provide insights into long-term substance use or chronic exposure to harmful chemicals, which could point toward an overdose or poisoning. Finally, hair samples can reveal long-term exposure to substances. Hair grows slowly and stores traces of chemicals, which remain intact even as the body decays. The analysis of Celeste's hair could provide a timeline of exposure to drugs or alcohol, potentially identifying whether substances were consumed leading up to her death. For example, if fentanyl or another substance is found in the hair, it could indicate chronic use or an accidental overdose. The Tesla vehicle and biological samples represent the primary tools for solving this case and answering the crucial question: was Celeste's death an accident, an overdose, or homicide? While the data from these sources could reveal critical insights, the severe decomposition of her body and the concealment of her remains in the trunk of the Tesla complicate the investigation. The vehicle itself may hold the key to understanding the events that transpired, but unless forensic testing of biological samples is conclusive, the mystery of the trunk may continue to overshadow the truth. As the investigation progresses and the results from toxicology and Tesla data become available, the timeline of events between September 2024 and September 2025 will be clarified. However, with potential attempts to conceal evidence and tamper with the body, the search for truth may be further obstructed. The curse of the trunk, a symbol of hidden secrets, might forever cloud the true nature of Celeste's death unless these crucial investigative tools unravel the full story. The coming months will be pivotal in determining whether the truth behind Celeste's tragic death will finally be revealed or if the case remains a mystery. forever haunted by the events leading up to her disappearance and discovery.